60 amp plasma cutter. The on-off switch is in the rear. It's got a fan. It's a 110 and 220 volts. There's your air outlet. The way to open this up is that you see there are 5 screws on either side, and they are very tiny screws. Down here, you can see it's pretty thick. I'm intending to replace this cord right here because it's rated at 14 gauge. So that's 20 amp. The other side of the switch, it says a 20 amp switch. The switch I examined here and I replaced with a 30 amp. It was a 20 amp. 60 amp outlet, 60 amp plug, 6 gauge wiring, which is very hard to work with. This is the ground. These 2 hots down here, the ground was easy, but taking these 2 hots, being 6 gauge each, very thick, very difficult to deal with, I had to take the bridge off. These are the heat sinks. This is the high frequency arc. This component right here, there's a gap in there that is a fraction of a millimeter. This is the circuitry for the ignition, the high frequency for the pilot arc to start. This is the component that they added so that you don't have to hit the metal first. This is what they call a choke and the ignition coil.
When replacing wiring to 6 gauge wiring, you will need to consider changing the crimp, the quick disconnect terminal, to handle the current. So you will need a 6 to 10 millimeter squared, which is very difficult to find, but it's necessary. You'll also need a 60 amp outlet. So you will need to wire a new 60 amp outlet and use a 60 amp relay or breaker. In the state of North Carolina, it allows homeowners to do their own wiring in their homes, provided that the homeowner will personally reside in the home for at least 1 year and not intending to rent it. So check with your building requirements, basically, building codes. You may also ask the question, how fast do you move when you cut using a plasma cutter? Well, it depends on the amperage of the plasma cutter. But for a 60 amp plasma cutter, I put a table here together to help basically use as a reference. So if you're using a 1/4 inch plate, 1/2 inch, 5/8 inch, 3/4 inch, 1 inch, 1/4, 1/2, I put the elapsed time and the distance that you will be moving, which is 1 inch. So you can use that as a reference.